Welcome back, Poggers, to another episode of the Pog State. I'm Atlas, and I am joined by my esteemed colleagues, Valdez, Wolf, and Chronicler. And I do have to, unfortunately, delay the true beginning of the episode because there is a disclaimer. There has recently been some accusations thrown around about bias, about some preconceived notions about teams being better than others of a subjective nature. And I do need to explain that there is a thing called framing, there's a thing called expectation setting, and there's another thing called narrative that we do employ on this broadcast because we are entertainers, like to tell a story, like to provide context and set expectations. So, on this show, we will be saying that one team may potentially beat another team. That does not mean that we dislike the team that may be beaten in this hypothetical situation. And if that team is your favorite team, please know that we like them as well because they're in the LCK. We are biased for one thing, and that is good Korean League of Legends. So please stop saying dumb stuff on Twitter. Okay, welcome to the show. Man, it has been an incredible first few weeks of the LCK. We've had some absolute banger matches, and we've got another one that's coming up for us tonight. You've already seen it. We're doing it again. This is what happened last time, and it's happening again because, of course, we had Damonkia versus Gen G, which proved to be one of the best of threes that I've seen in my life, and we may have that repeat itself with Damonkia taking on T1. And that bias thing might be coming into your mind right now because we said Damonkia in both of those matches. It just so happens that this is a absolutely huge match.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's gigantic, right? Both of these teams are big favorites in the LCK. I'm not going to lean any way.
Okay, we can let that one die now. I think I've gone too hard.
But, yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Of course, Wolf and I are going to be on the desks today, so we'll be breaking down the action. Deskers over here.
Deskers.
Yeah.
Desker hype.
Yeah,
sorry for the noise. I just had to break the rules and put the...
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wait. What's that, Wolf?
You're getting a little bit ahead of yourself, but I think now we need to segue into commercialism.
Commercial!
Keep your head warm. Only 26K! Patch on some patches.
Patches sold separately. Marketing.
Why do you have like two top lanes? Are you're top lane for both teams. You can find, of course, more LCK goods at lckshop.com.
Commercial!
These are actually super dope. You can represent exactly, like, if you're a jungler and you want to be hated by everyone on the street, you can do that. You can just place that patch on your head. If you're a jungler, but you don't want that, you could also just put any other position on your beanie and be absolutely fine. All of the positions come together, so you can feel free to do whatever your heart desires. But yes, speaking of patch notes, the Chemtech Drake is gone. It died.
The Poros have won.
Good, they have. We can actually bring up onto your screen as well the migratory patterns of the Poros. This is now being repaired. Things are now going to be okay.
Nature is healing.
Yep. If you watch the David Attenborough documentary with the walruses, the crying can stop. The crying can stop.
Well, I think it's definitely... we've talked about this a little bit on the broadcast, but I think it was a pretty brave choice by Riot to actually take it out because a lot of work went into making those effects, right, that people didn't like as much as they were hoping for them to. A lot of work it goes into building the Drake, setting up what it means, the effects, right? They even added the new icon for the res and stuff like that. They really wanted to make it work. They tweaked it a little bit. They added the Scryer's Bloom, but like people were still unhappy with it. It really negatively affected pro play. It made the losing team really struggle to come back. And I think it's a good thing that Riot is actually brave enough to make this call and be like, yeah, we worked really hard to make this thing, and we're still going to say we messed up, and this isn't ready yet, and we're going to take it out of the game. Because most devs, including Riot, usually never make a call like that. So I thought it was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I think it's one of these difficult moments, though, right? Because we had DRX versus Kwangdong Freecs, and Kwangdong didn't exactly benefit from, Chemtech Drake existing. Not necessarily for the effect of the soul, but the rift itself making it really, really difficult for them to make any sort of map move. I don't know what the solution is there, but I think that Riot did make the right decision.
Yeah.
Regardless of what that is. But it is tricky, right? Because, like, that was there for the first few weeks. Do we now, like... Is it enough of an issue? I guess not.
I think it's fine. I mean, if something's really bad, like Corki, you should remove it, right? And if something's really bad, like the Chemtech Drake, you should remove it, or at least tweak it to a point, like a champion, in this case, with Corki, to the point where it's playable. And I don't know exactly what the tweak will be. Maybe it'll be like smaller patches throughout the map, or I don't know, like it's on and off, or I don't know. I haven't thought about it too much, but I think it's a good idea to just get rid of it. And, all the other teams had to play with that as well, potentially, and now it's gone. And I think that's fine and fair. It's about as good as it can get.
Yeah, it's twofold, right? Because the Hextech Drake, I think, is universally beloved. In what it provides to the games, both in terms of the soul as well as the rift. But I personally, based on the communications from Riot themselves as well, I don't think the camouflage is coming back. Like, I think that the soul might stay, because the soul actually, I think in terms of how people experienced it, was a little frustrating, but it was not the end of the world. But the rift was just not it. And I'm really wondering what they're going to bring in instead, on which time frame they're going to do it, because they were very clearly like, we don't really know. Is going to get taken out. Wasn't even in the patch, right? Like, it was taken out before that. It was like
it was basically hotfixed out. Yeah.
Which says a lot, I think, about Riot also being like. And I agree with Wolf. I think this was a great call. The idea was cool, but the execution was just bad for the game. And now the game is a lot better. Only need to nerf those Corki rockets, and then we're in a good spot.
No, we're fine.
It's all right. We're nerfing the package, guys.
Can we move on? I don't want to. I don't want to get. I don't want to go.
This yesterday.
I don't want to go down the rabbit hole
still,
again.
Yeah, no, it's
Too
still
soon.
Still hearing the clown music.
Yeah, just to catch you guys up, we recently had a Corki experience, which was not so great. Nongshim now know that banning Corki is a good idea, but it took 2 games of being absolutely destroyed by the champion in the late game. They didn't get destroyed by it in the early game. It was actually it was an unfortunate scenario. Anyway, let's move on from that one as well. Let's just go over the game that we missed out on, right, last time around, which was Gen.G taking on Damwon Kia, an absolutely extraordinary best of 3. And this happened 2 weeks ago, right after the Pog State. And I'm hoping now that we're setting a precedent, right, here on the Pog State, where we get extraordinarily hype matches right at the end of the week that we're not able to talk about on the show, and we have to only talk as if it's about to happen. And that could just happen.
It's a new Pog State tradition.
Yeah.
I already know, though, that T1 Gen.G, which is the third in this like trilogy of amazing series, is going to be on a Saturday.
Yep.
That's true.
So that we're going to break.
Talk about it.
We're going to break the pattern there. But I think it's important to talk about all 3 of them. We've only seen one, but I agree with you. I think it was one of the best of 3s, best series in general that we've seen within the LCK in a really long time. Like, it had everything. It had weird pocket picks. Thank you, Lahans. Really appreciate you. It had extremely high-level gameplay. Doran saying, "Oh my god, this is so fun."
Yeah.
It's just like everything about that series was amazing. I can only hope that later this afternoon, T1 DK and in 2 weeks, T1 Gen.G stands up to it.
No, I agree. I think the Gen.G question mark is actually a big one, given the fact that they just dropped to KT. I actually just want to talk about yesterday in general, because yesterday is super meaningful to the LCK. Yes, it was a 4-0 night, and oftentimes we're like, 4-0 night, didn't learn all that much, right? It's like 2 teams getting smashed, but it was Gen.G getting smashed by KT, which, I mean, I haven't been able to say that since, 2018?
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy.
Too long.
And then immediately afterwards, DRX, who had probably the worst start in the LCK that we've seen this season, managing to take down a Nongshim that were looking very, very good. It's just really cool. Why are you laughing at me?
KT also lost the Live Sandbox before smashing Gen.G.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the most KT thing ever, right? It's
the roller coaster.
Yeah, it's the perfect KT scenario. People were getting excited when they were taking down Live Sandbox. idiots.
Yesterday,
Okay? And then
Yesterday-
no one got excited. They're like, no, they can't beat Genji in game 2. That's never going to happen.
I think yesterday was a really big proponent for preparing for a specific best of 3. Like both teams that won yesterday prepared extremely well for the style they wanted to play. KT wanted to play tempo-based early game comps where they get an early advantage and then push it forward. And then, Nongshim had no idea what they wanted to do. And DRX were like, well, we're going to build Corki comps. And they played it very well. We got to see Life's Jarvan come through again, which is always really fun to see. And it was really cool for me to see KT. Yes, they lost to Live Sandbox earlier in the week, but clearly their focus was on this best of 3. They wanted to make a big statement this week and be like, I can beat Genji. Yes, we lost to Live Sandbox. It was a closer one. It was a tougher one. But we can actually beat a top 3 team in the LCK. We came extremely prepared. Genji last time didn't prepare against weaker opponents. Looked a little bit, there was a bit of a struggle there, let's just say, in that last series. I'm not going to get too into the weeds on that, but I think KT identified that Genji don't always, appropriately prepare for opponents they think they're stronger than. KT prepared really well. They win that one out. In the Nongshim series, it was really a clear case of, well, BDD doesn't want to play Corki, and they left it open, and they were like, going to avoid this one. And then when the Corki was locked in, you could see them cycle through champions and the way they were drafting. You could see it on their faces, too. They were like, we're just better than them. We win, right? No, neither game did you win. Neither game were you the better team, sadly.
There's also an alpaca-sized problem in the bot lane where Ghost got positively demolished. I think
By Beryl.
Well,
By the way.
Thank you.
I'm like that double kill on the bottom side. That was a duo kill, right? That was definitely great play on both
Beryl
sides.
started the first one, and then, it was a duo kill for the second one.
Yeah.
It was like Beryl was riding on the back of the alpaca.
yeah.
It was like they were doing it together.
No,
Yeah.
they really were.
It's just, I know everybody loves Deft, and he's such an awesome figure and a great personality and everything, and he's an awesome Jinx player, but at the same time, I want Beryl
it's a really good shout
to get the respect.
and
as well.
Peter, we still love you. It's fine. It happens. That's just how you learn. It's okay.
I mean, he absorbed a lot of super mega death rockets with his face.
It was like he was a magnet that game.
Yeah. And
Sadly.
you can't even blame him half the time because Deft was aiming for other people, and then he's just minding his own business. It's like the classic of just walking down the street and then hit with a piano. That was Peter. That whole series.
He was a casualty.
He was. Yeah. He was. Oh man. Not very nice at all. However, it was very good to see DRX actually performing because we were talking about, I love this because we were talking about both KT and DRX with these teams have the potential to be great. And KT came out of the gates and they looked like a team that was ready to contend. They immediately after their series moved to 5th place and we're like, that's where they should be. That's what we wanted. This is looking good. But DRX, losing 3 in a row, yes, it was very difficult opposition in their second and third matches, but their first one against Live Sandbox, I think we all agree that they should have been able to win that based on the power level of the team coming in and what we'd heard about scrims and behind the scenes and things like that. But now to be able to be on this winning streak and they're now the fun team that we're used to seeing with Pyoshik doing his fighting stuff after playing Lee Sin into the camera. That's what we want to see from this DRX, and it's just a joy. It's now finally it's things are actually as expected a little bit.
And all it took was the sacrifice of Kwangdong Freecs.
Yeah, because I think we can actually now, and I hate to do it, but I think I was kind of leaning in week 1. I was like, I think this team has some serious issues about how it's approaching objectives. And I was like, yeah, I think these are 5 great players, but I think this team is probably number 10 in the LCK. I think we could pretty clearly say Kwangdong is number 10 in the LCK right now, sadly. And it's
Can we
it's a little
bring
bit
up the
sad.
Standings? Because
They are actually, in fact, at the moment, number 10. But I think there's no they're number 10 right now, but they had a tough strength of schedule and they're gonna bounce back. No, a lot needs to change before they're not.
commentators
the worst
don't
team.
say that though. Oh wait, hang on. No, I do. Never mind. I've said that quite a lot. No, take it all back.
Yep.
You were gonna say, Chronicle.
With Kwangdong, the issue is just that outside of Keen, and I don't even think Keen has been playing. His laning has been really good, but his out of lane presence I don't think has been that amazing compared to what he's shown in the past. I think it's just Teddy, and he's back again where he started. He's gone full circle, and it's not a pretty sight. I think he looks really good. But Fate is so much worse. I know me and Brendan were both really big Fate fans.
I think
too.
all of
Like, I
us
love
were on
Fate.
the Fate hype train, and then it was just like,
No.
We've been huge Fate
it's a
fans
really weak
since
start.
like Yamato was coaching Sandbox, and like he spoke to us and like spoke about how cool this player is and how good he is in scrims and these things that he's been doing and all that sort of stuff. And ever since then, we're just like, come on, Fate, we know you got it.
I had like a mini heart attack when I heard he might be going to North America. I was like, no, that's my guy. Like, you can't take him from us. And then he stayed, and I was like, yes.
Instead. Oh, no.
And it feels really strange too, because I think this meta should be good for him, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's just a control mage player. He should be able to play stuff like Victor, stuff like Azir. He has in the past, Orianna, but now it's just, I don't know. It's all up in the air for him.
It's really hard for Kwangdong as well, because when DRX was still losing, I thought they could have made a reasonable call and called up some of the challengers players, which I don't think it necessarily fixes the issue, but sometimes bringing in new players, like we saw this with Nongshim even, bringing in Peter, had a really big impact on how the rest of the team played. And DRX's team, like the top side and the jungler, Clear and Peach are both amazing. But for Kwangdong, their only good players really are top and mid, right? It's Ilima and Bulldog can't play yet, and Ilima is playing behind Keen. So like there's also not really a good solution for them. They're not going to find a good jungler or a support out of nowhere, and I don't know how they're going to fix it.
Make
I don't think
Ilima
it's-
play mid.
The thing
That's
is, like,
the way.
I don't think it's
put
an
him in
individual
mid lane.
problem, right?
But that's
Like,
exactly what I was about to say, Wolf. Like, it's not. I don't think any of the individual parts are an issue at all.
they need to work together,
They
though.
they don't do anything together whatsoever. Like Keen was 5,000 gold ahead in his lane. How do you not have your team facilitate you after that?
And
how does that not work? And you're an LCK team.
And how do you never put wards around objectives or group up for an objective or side lane so that you can push to objectives faster or do anything but either just sit in lane and farm or just K-Ram as 5 in mid, which is what they do every game, and then they lose control of the map, even from ahead.
I think what Mal is trying to say as well is that even the addition of one player can totally change the way the team plays, right? And we've seen it before with Peter. We've seen it with other players. There's one very specific... Gory is the one where he came in and the team looked totally different. And yeah, Gory was a better player than Bay, but just the way they interacted with each other, the way they communicated, I think it can totally change just with a fresh change. And if things keep going down, I think it's something they should consider.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the point, though. It's like you don't. If you can bring in a player and then automatically all 5 players speak together correctly, then yeah, like cool, like that's a great move. But the idea is not any one player on Kwangdong Freecs being the problem. The problem is none of them seem to talk with each other.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, Hoyt's had some stinkers. And like,
Hoyt
yes,
and
they've
LM.
had, like, LM is
Yeah.
probably
It's
the worst
getting a little
jungler
better.
in the LCK right
A little
now.
bit better.
But like,
Some improvement.
the first person to look stupid when your communication sucks is the jungler.
Yeah, of course.
Every single time. Like, you need to be feeding your jungler information. Unless, like, you're like the off example of, like, you know, Score in the past who just be able to be the orchestrator of his own destiny every game and things like this. And Score had some bad games in his time as well, but the majority of the time he was okay. Other examples, I guess, are Canyon, who can also just feel how the jungle works
Tarzan.
and things like that. Tarzan as well is another great example of that, of like
Miss Tarzan.
like very like I guess smart junglers that are able to just know.
Cloud Templar.
Cloud Templar, another absolute genius when it comes to the jungle. His Amumu play, of course, just absolutely staggering.
Stunning.
But LM, he's not that player, right? LM was a mechanics type snowball jungler when he was playing for T1, and he needs to be helped. He needs to be fed that information. He needs to be guided. And there's no one on that team guiding anyone.
I don't think it's as extreme as this, but this is the fear I had with Genji's roster of like, okay, you have all the good players, but like, can you actually pull it off? Are you guys going to talk? Like, are you guys going to share information? Are you guys going to play as a unit, or you're going to play as 5, separated fingers? And I was wrong about Genji. I didn't expect this issue to happen on Kwangdong because the players are not as high profile, right? They're not.
Yeah.
They don't have the big egos. They're not the big boys. All of them. Teddy, perhaps is someone you could argue for in this case. Keen seems very egoless in how he plays, but I think that it's really a tough call if you're Kwangdong, but you have to somehow, as the coach, I think this is a coach issue. Like, the coach needs to be like, you are not talking, you guys are not calming, you guys are not looking for objectives, you guys are not trying to clear vision. Like, why are you guys all grouping as 5? Because that's what happens in solo queue. Everybody's had that moment in solo queue where your whole team is just pushing mid because nobody can talk, nobody's on voice, you know, and you're like, well, I mean, he moved mid, and we're all going to move mid, and maybe we get a turret. You just follow the team, you just go together, and you just funnel into the mid lane. Like, it's such an obvious symptom of, like, lack of communication, lack of coordination. And the coach needs to be in scrims and be like, you guys aren't talking enough. You guys aren't talking enough. Why aren't you guys talking? Because it has to happen. Like, that's what needs to evolve.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of two things need to happen. Either the jungler or support steps up as a shot caller, because both Fate and Teddy are not... They're not guys that lead teams, right? They're kind of, you know...
Keen as well. He's never been a leader. He's
Exactly.
always been like a weapon. Right?
Yeah, he's in the
Needs
top
to be
lane.
wielded.
He is a giant scythe just ready to chop your opponent in half, but he needs someone to grab the scythe and, you know, kind of push it through.
It's a great analogy.
You know
That's
what,
a very good
You know what
analogy.
Kwangdong needs? Unironically, is effort.
No.
No, I'm gonna veto that.
2021,
Kinda like that
2021
idea.
summer effort.
2021 summer specific game effort, yes. They would benefit from that. But
I mean, they need any kind of leader.
But do you know what's
Barrel.
crazy? They
Barrel would
have
be
Spirit.
Perfect.
Like we've seen Spirit, who's been standing behind them in the coaching booth, like going through these things. He's been wearing his super sexy, gigantic nautical jacket and things like that, looking really powerful, but he hasn't been able to actually get behind his team. And like Spirit is another one of these, you know, superstar junglers that we've had, maybe not with the accolades that someone like Score has, who Gen G managed to pick up, but we know that Spirit has been exactly the driving force that Kwangdong Freecs need for that specific team. Like, Spirit has been that guy that's made Keen look like the god that he is in certain moments. And yes, like, that team was always hindered by weakness in the mid lane and things like this, but they solved that issue and took away the being able to actually communicate thing. And I think that, like, I believe that Spirit has the ability to teach his team, but he hasn't been able to yet.
So what you're saying is Spirit rule swaps from coach to support.
yes.
And leads his team to victory.
Well, I mean, I don't want to point any fingers or make any decisions for any teams, but there's Jarvan
yes.
back in the meta, you know,
Yeah.
like in
I was
the bottom
about
lane,
to
know
say,
what I'm
maybe he saw that Jarvan support and was like, it's my time. It's my time.
Does it make you guys wonder how valuable Fly's experience and his veterancy and how much communicating he did maybe on
He
a
didn't
freak
do a
last
lot
year?
of communicating, though.
No,
we don't know
I'm-
that
I'm-
much.
I'm-
No,
about it.
I do wonder though, because he's one of the oldest players on that roster last year with Bang in the very short period of time that Bang
But you
was
don't
playing.
trade one problem for another. You solve
yeah,
the problem.
It was Lahens, right? Like the especially after seeing how insanely good Lahens has been on Gen
It was
G.
Lahens, and before that it was Spirit.
Yeah.
Right.
Is what like, because I never thought Lahens looked that great on Afrika. He was okay, like he
Yeah.
was there, but I think seeing him and his antics return and the way that he's playing on Gen G has really big impact.
And I want to see Kwangdong like do a little bit of being able to compromise,
Yeah.
changing where they need to. Maybe Keen needs to step up. Maybe he needs to start communicating more, sacrificing lane a little bit just so that he can get the rest of his team, to the right level. Like, I don't know, Kwangdong. There's like they
Much.
have the tools, but they
'Cause-
haven't built the raft. You know?
Yeah, because with teams like Hanwha Life and Live Sandbox, it's very clear what the issues are, but they're normal for what you'd expect from players of that caliber, right?
Yeah.
There's either challengers players or players that have come back into the LCK, haven't played for a while, or that have role swapped, like all these reasons where we're like, yeah, if you do well, cool, and if you don't do well,
We didn't have high hopes for you anyways.
yeah, like it's
unfortunately,
fine. You know, maybe
Rebuilding year, you know.
like Croco, maybe you can become a better player on like weaker teams. Karis has a great development thus far. Like, all that's fine, but it doesn't really matter. But for Kwangdong, I think everyone expected more, and I hope that they at some point will reach that. But in this lineup, I don't see it happen. I don't see it coming together, and I'm very optimistic generally.
Yeah, no, and I think that there is a reason why we've harped on about this for quite some time, right? It's because the expectation was there. Like, we're not going to be, like, sitting here being like, Live Sandbox should be better. Because, no, like, the expectations were low at the beginning. They have Dove, who's rolled swapped towards the top side of the map, and already that hasn't necessarily gone great outside of his back-to-back Tryndamere debuts that he pulled off in their first series. Like, that's not where the expectation is. Like, we got very excited about Fred at Brion, even though they were losing, because our expectations were right at the bottom, alongside a Harmor Life that have obviously decided that this is going to be a development year where they're trying to, build these new players into better. But that means that, like, Kwangdong Freecs were expected to at least be 6th, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like worst case scenario.
We're like the gatekeeper.
There's not another. There's no other spots in the bottom 3, and I think that we're justified in being a little bit disappointed with where things have gone.
They're just a complete antithesis of Fred at Brion in like every possible way.
Right.
Or Fred at Brion, like sometimes you look at the laning, you're like, no, but it doesn't matter. Because when they get past 40 minutes...
It's the power of friendship.
Exactly. When the commander says go, and you love your commander, you go.
Everyone goes.
Yeah.
Follow the umpty.
Mm-hmm. And it works out very nicely. That is enough being disappointed dads here on the Pog State. This is a show about excitement, about happy... Well, not when it comes to KT, but it's about excitement and happiness and looking forward to what the future holds. And the future for us, in only a few hours' time, is Damwon Kia versus T1. So, let's get into it. Here we go. Damwon Kia versus T1, and let's just bring it right down from the top, I guess. As Zeus versus Burdol is Chroniclers. Okay, take it away, man. You can go.
You okay?
Oh yeah, this is. I've been waiting a long time for this, right? Because I've been asking for Zeus for like a year, and I'm feeling more and more justified by the day, which is great because he's been his debut this year wasn't amazing, but he's getting more and more comfortable. You're starting to really see how smart of a player he is. Versus a Burdol that I think was somewhat too harshly criticized for his earlier games on Damwon Kia, and that's slowly getting there. But it's just the fact that these guys used to be on the team together for T1, right? And that like both of them were vying for the same position, and then Burdol went to Gen G, and then Burdol performed on Gen G, and then he got clapped by Ale, and now he's going to take on Zeus. It's just, there's so much there. And they're both really young and promising players. And if only we had Ilma as well, and we could somehow jam him in there, that'd be perfect.
Their trajectory is so similar as well, because they're they were both rookies last year, and they both get to the semi-finals at Worlds in sub positions on their team. Like
it's too good,
too perfect.
And everybody was super hyped for both players. Like they were very, very hyped rookies.
Yeah.
Everybody was talking about how they were solo queue gods. They're amazing in lane, mechanically super skilled, and it's just really uncanny how similar they are. And
it's
now they're
red
going
and blue
head-to-head.
from Pokemon. It's straight up red and blue from Pokemon.
So good. And that said, I do think that Zeus is going to smash Burdol tonight, and I don't think it will be close.
Yeah.
Which is the unfortunate scenario, because final thoughts on that is that if you look at those three top laners, right, Zeus, Burdol, and Ilma, Zeus is by far the smartest. Burdol is mechanically the one that I think has the highest peaks in terms of like flashy moments, and then Ilma is crazy, but we love him for that, right? And I hope we get to see him at some point. We will never know. But what Zeus has shown me is a understanding of how to play his lane within his team that goes far beyond what you should expect from a player that young. And Burdol just doesn't have that at all. Like Burdol, I think, has had great team fighting moments, and I think that he's been steadily improving. But there are so many moments where he's the way he manipulates his waves, the way that he positions himself, the way that he reads the map is, I don't think, coming even close to Zeus. And I'm pretty sure that with Oner playing as well as he is, that top lane is not going to be close.
Yeah. Zeus has the game sense beyond his years.
He really
type
does.
Situation.
Yeah, he's really smart.
He's got that old soul vibe, but for League of Legends that generally develops, couple of years in advance.
After getting dove on like the third stacked wave like 15,000 times
through the fire and flames.
Connected in Italy.
Yeah. Can we talk about, if I can use our merch? Like, can we talk about the jungle matchup? Because that's what I'm really excited about.
All right, get in there.
I think that Canyon has had a pretty lukewarm start to the season. I wouldn't say he's playing poorly, but I think he
only has half the POGs for his team this season, and that is pretty terrible.
I think he's kind of
for him.
he's going to be criticized by a lot of people harshly because he's kind of always chasing his own shadow because he's had so many fantastic years and so many impervious, like untouchable seasons where you cannot even say anything bad about him. But I think it's been a little bit lukewarm at the start. I think part of that is because of the new top lane and the adjustments that have been made to the bottom side of the map. Whereas meanwhile, I think Oner is up there with Dread right now for how good of a jungler he is. Like, he is so aggressive. He's reading the bottom lane super well. He's following the action. He's setting up vision really well. He's threatening the mid lane. And that's what, I think we talked about how you can change one player and the whole roster changes earlier on in this episode. Mm-hmm. And we talked about Gory. I think Oner was really the big catalyst for change in T1 when they finally decided to stick with a roster last summer.
Yeah.
And I look at Oner as somebody who's changed the way T1 plays so much, and it's allowed Faker to have more ability to shot call properly. And I'm just excited to see how he clashes against Canyon tonight because we also live in a meta where Poppy is super valuable, and he was one of the first players to play Poppy. He played Poppy in the finals last year. I'm really, really looking forward to seeing how the draft changes based on what Oner wants to play and how Canyon will react, because oftentimes you will also see teams ban out things like the Diana specifically for Canyon, and I wonder if T1 will follow suit.
And I think that at the same time, talking about the meta a little bit, I feel like Canyon's start has been a little bit lukewarm because of that, because literally all he does is sit in the bottom lane on Jarvan, or he farms on Diana. He says, okay, pick a strong bottom lane that can survive so I don't have to be there and I'll play Diana. Or I'll just stand there and get you ahead. And now it's Duck Dom, so they know that he can hard carry as well. So they can kind of just do that. Oner, I don't think he's done as much of the camping style, but he's definitely a really smart jungler as well and extremely aggressive.
He's really
and,
fluid.
Yeah, he's really fluid, very mechanically skilled as well. So really excited for that matchup. What about the mid lane? What do you guys think?
Well,
ShowMaker or Faker?
I can't wait for Corki Victor and Corki Azir.
Oh God, please!
If Corki gets played, I'm just going to be disappointed with the series entirely.
That's going to have.
It might be a walkout. You guys will have seen already whether or not we walked out. So leave your YouTube comment. If there was Corki played, just let us know how we looked while we were exiting LoL Park.
It's crazy, but like the thing is that when you're playing, as Wolf already said, when you're playing against Damwon, you ban away Diana, but also you got to ban away TF. And if you're on red side, I mean, you got to ban away either Renekton or Caitlyn or Karma or any of these things. So if Damwon decides, especially, I don't know who's home team, but depending on like what side you start on,
home team this time, yeah.
So if they just ban away not Corki, they can get a Diana, they can get a TF, they can get a Renekton, one of these things. So maybe the Corki does slip through one time, especially if it goes 3 games.
Well, that's the interesting thing. I actually think that both of these mid laners also hate Corki. Like, Faker has been very outspoken about it.
A lot of mid laners hate Corki, but they have to play it.
Well, yeah, but
apart from Lava, I think Lava is the only Corki enjoyer that we have.
He's like, yes, lock me Corki.
Yeah, give me my Corki. The guy with a 4-11 win rate who does on average 45% of his team's damage when he plays Corki. The most Corki stat ever.
I really wonder how that one's going to go, because I think that as much as I'd like it to be a matchup that really has a big impact, I'm pretty sure it's going to be control mages, hopefully no Corki, and that's going to be it. And the middle lane matchup outside of team fights is just not going to have that big an impact.
I think there's a chance that if it does go to game 3, that in one of those 3 games we do, like, that does not hold true and we see a really crazy pick, like Kassadin, for example, which was pulled out in the finals in summer. Something like that for ShowMaker. I feel like ShowMaker will be the one to do it. And it's really interesting for me story-wise, like narrative-wise, for this mid matchup, because even though ShowMaker has beaten Faker in so many critical matches now, in the semifinals of Worlds, beating him in summer, right? It feels like, I think, in these series where we see ShowMaker versus Faker, it's like ShowMaker's trying to prove something. Like, I'm going to beat you with this unique, unusual champion. I'm going to crush you in this matchup that's tougher to play, sometimes to his detriment, as we saw. And I think that if it goes to 3 games, like, I would not be shocked to see some unusual mid pick from ShowMaker in particular.
Faker Echo? Anyone? Any Faker Echo fans? A Faker Fizz? What about that?
The Faker Fizz sounds
that was a good one too.
Just the best. Oh my god.
No Zeri yet.
Remember, Faker has played 70 unique. Is it 70 unique champions
Yeah, he hit
throughout
70.
his career
He hit
now?
70.
So he's
The happy
hit
giggle.
70. So there is a lot of picks. I was reading on Reddit this really interesting conversation that people were having about picks into Corki, and we were actually having this discussion, I believe, yesterday. I don't remember who it was with. Maybe I was talking to Chronicler walking home, but talking about the Z into Corki that used to be that like I'm gonna destroy you type matchup.
I was
that you
talking with
used to be
somebody
able to
about
go
that
to.
recently too. It wasn't me and you, but like I've actually been thinking about this a little bit too.
Any Axiom Arc gamers? Anyone build that?
Hula hoopers?
Anyone?
I honestly believe that when it comes to like Corki, it's too much. Like because we
No, but,
joke
like,
about it a
okay,
lot.
so this is what I was talking about. This is what I was reading though, is that people were saying that pro players aren't practiced enough on Zed to like play him to his full potential. Like it's not Zed's fault. The pro players just aren't good enough at the champion. And I find this absolutely
Sounds like a Reddit experience.
absolutely hilarious because like BDD was a Zed one trick. He has at least 1,000 games on Zed. Like ShowMaker came into the LCK as an assassin only player who played only Katarina. Like he's got like at least like Faker has the most famous play of all time on the champion. Like
No, Atlas, he got reworked.
oh my god,
guys,
no.
the other thing is
The only reason why players don't play the pick that you're thinking is mechanically intensive is because it is too inconsistent in pro.
What if there
Except
was another?
Janna.
What if there was another champion
Except Janna,
that
yeah,
was
maybe.
both meta?
But Janet, like the skill ceiling's too high.
But just hear me out. What if there was another champion that was both meta, and also had an ability to dash back to like a shadow or some other place, had burst damage, and was very famously played by both mid laners in this matchup. The LeBlanc that could be played into Corki, which is the most common response to Corki. Yeah,
And used to
I
be.
wonder why we don't see the Zed. I wonder why we don't see the Zed.
Nah,
It's just
yeah.
it's very odd when you know.
The thing about that is
very
that
much better than
all
LeBlanc.
Corki has to do, as we saw yesterday, even if he does get pressured and dies to a control mage like Azir, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like he needs to die a lot.
He has to die out. He has to
and
die
he
in
needs
30
to
minutes.
Be
Repeatedly.
just hunted down, basically. Like
Yeah, because
someone that has full-on assassination potential. Because LeBlanc, like she has poke, but you're up against a package all the time. I don't know. Just hasn't really worked out so far either.
No, the important thing to note with this is also that when people are saying like, oh yeah, just get an assassin player and play him perfectly, like the Corki player is also going to be just as good, especially in a matchup like this, right?
Yep.
So the Corki
and
player
also
also
has no onus of making a play
Exactly.
at all.
'Cause you
He
have
just
infinite wave player.
alive until 35 minutes, and then you get
Yeah, it's
handed
not about the
Nexus.
lane. You have to be able to kill him at 35 minutes in the game.
Yeah.
And LeBlanc has done it a few times. Like, we have seen that occur.
Yeah.
It's very rare. but
Or
it has
you
happened.
reliably win the game.
before
But like the problem is the LCK teams aren't confident that they can reliably snowball a game to a sub 35-minute victory against a Corki.
And honestly, like
KT
with the
did
meta
against
as it
Gen
is,
G just
yeah,
yesterday.
true.
That's why I think
KT's
Genji
KT,
might
I
change
don't
do it.
Genji or KT might change the trend of our meta with that 2-0.
I hope so.
I
mean,
think that might be a first step towards like, okay, there's a different way to do this.
I hope so, too.
Fingers crossed.
I'm kind of skeptical because of the overall state of it's not just the LCK, right? Like even the LPLs play way slower than they used to, and I think it's just that again the problem with Corki isn't just the damage; it's the risk reward, right? Where there is no risk, and that's the real issue.
Zero risk.
There is literally none because if you play Xerath, which could be picked into Corki and do a very similar thing,
Used to
especially
in,
once
like,
he gets some
2015.
item.
I remember.
No, honestly, like
Good old Shahu
That's-
Xerath,
that-
one of my
that-
favorite picks.
that's a suggestion that you can make. But the real issue with Corki, and like we joke about the package nerfs, I think they will be okay. Because the main thing with the champion is that just there is almost no way to punish him, and the damage in relation to that is way too high. Like if you are a Kiana, you do that amount of damage with a combo, it's fine because you probably get one tapped unless you like outplay. With Corki's, isn't there?
Yeah,
I don't think we're gonna just ban it.
There's a lot less skill expression because you have 5 bajillion rockets as well. So if you miss 6, but then you hit the big one on the Aphelios, then he's out, right? So if you're playing Xerath, I think you eventually like run out of mana, or you can just get Dove or whatever.
Yeah, I was Xerath.
Sometime within my insanity yesterday, I remember saying like, "Oh, he's got the package, so he just gets to go bot lane against 5 people and poke the inhibitor because nobody can dump on him because he's totally safe."
His kit is
alone.
His kit furthers the
not
problem
fair.
because he has the ability to escape. Even when he doesn't have packages, Valkyrie is just so strong. Like
It's not fair. He's got the power of Jeff Bezos on his side. He's like got the stupid packagey thing that just turns up at the Nexus.
Unfair.
That's not allowed. That's not allowed at all.
He struck a deal with Boris, and I don't trust it one bit. It's
I don't
unfair,
know, man.
I feel like
Yeah.
we
The
rich
should
get
steer away
richer.
from Corki. Yeah.
well, they're
ridiculous.
taking away his Amazon Prime in the next patch, but I think his kit is still going to be pretty good.
Well, yeah, this is the problem because he can still pay to get. It's just not. It's not fair. Let's stop talking about the mid lane because it's just devolved into a
it all
Corki
keeps
rant.
going back to Corki.
It's sort of how it works.
Very frustrated.
We now get to
collectively.
talk about the best bottom lane in the LCK and possibly the world.
Yep.
Which one?
That's the best part. That is
Which
the
one?
best
What
part.
do you mean?
And look, I think that the smart money is on Gumayusi Keria. I think that they've looked absolutely unbelievable. I think Gumayushi's Aphelios has looked the best in the league. I think Aphelios is still a little bit of a trap, a little bit frightened about the amount of first pick Aphelioses, but there are 2 players. There are 2 players in the LCK where we're okay with you first picking Aphelios, and they're both in this game. So
I think it will be banned all 3 games or all 2 games.
Yeah.
I
I'm
don't
okay
think
with
it will be played in this series.
Higher
sadly.
chance of Corki then. That sounds good.
Stop bringing it back to Corki,
Sorry,
Brendan.
it all
I don't
comes
want to
back
think
Corki.
about. No,
I
do really agree.
But it's true.
I don't think Aphelios is getting played.
I don't think so.
Personally, I think Dogdoms is the best, but it's like what's better, a rainbow or a waterfall?
Yeah,
right?
and it's also a little bit of historical bias as well, because I think over the last couple of weeks, Gumayusi has really just been better.
A waterfall is better, by the way, than a rainbow. Just saying.
A waterfall is also always there, whereas a rainbow comes and goes.
If there's a rainbow in the waterfall, we can talk.
often happens.
That's what's going to happen tonight, actually. In the
That
series.
is what's going to
Rainbow
happen in
and
the
a
bottom
waterfall,
lane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
oh god,
Yeah, there you go.
that's beautiful.
No, I personally think that when it comes to overall impact on the game, that Gumayusi and Keria are just kind of unmatched. And the really big difference maker to me is that something that we've asked for a long time is actually utilizing counterpick supports. And of all teams, Gen G have embraced this a bunch of times.
Yep.
With the Singed, with the Janna. And I think that Keria currently is in a position where T1's able to utilize that way better, because Keria's champion pool is absurd, right? And I think Callan has been great. I think he's been very top of the line support, but I don't think he has the X factor that Keria does. And the fact that T1 tonight, say Aphelios is banned, and Caitlyn is not there, and suddenly T1's like, you know what would be good here? Is Lee Senna. They can just do that, and then Keria will 1v9 on Lee. And I think that can just happen. I think Senna is somewhat underexplored because of how broken some of the other picks are, right? The Aphelios.
And her debut
Caitlyn.
was not great.
Also, yes, but that was into Caitlyn Lux, which
No, it
again,
was. We've seen so many times the LCK do this, right? Where they see
Tom
a pick
Kench.
just absolutely faceplant, and then the team's like, "This is not good.
It's not viable.
This is not viable.
Cancel.
Back
to Azir Corki.
Let's just actually
Only
put
Azir
Azir
Corki.
Corki in the bottom lane together, and
All
it'll be
5
fine."
lanes.
But I think that to me is one of the deciding factors, and I think that right now, Gumayusi Keria is outside of maybe Viper Mako the best bot lane in the world. Mm-hmm. But I don't think Dogdom and Callan are going to get run over. So I think there's
I
nothing
think it's really
to lose
matchup
here.
specific and how the game goes, because the bot lane, unless we've had some errors where people actually die in really bad ways, and either Caitlyn and Lux absolutely destroy lane or absolutely get destroyed, which shouldn't happen. Outside of error, it's all about how do the junglers feed the bottom players? It's like the bot lane isn't about the bot lane; it's about everything else. And then how did your bot lane then become a crazy laser cannon later on? But this whole discussion, before we talked about this, I was kind of leaning I'm pretty much leaning that I would predict T1 to win this series and probably 2-0. That was kind of my my prediction. I was like, let's see what everyone else on the Pog State has to say before. And I feel like the more we talk, the more I feel pretty confident, actually, that I think T1 is going to take this series with flying colors. When I think about each individual part, I think Damwon Kia really have to show up tonight if they're going to take the series. I think it's going to be a good one, but I think my money's on T1 right now.
Yeah, I think one elephant in the room to talk about as well as the draft. I think that sometimes the drafting can be a little bit iffy for T1 specifically. Like they have
and Damwon's last drafts though, like the Leona priority. What was that?
It just feels like sometimes that happens with great teams, and T1 have had this problem. I think it's getting a bit better over the course of time, but as long as they don't have really strange drafts, they should be heavily favored in my mind.
Yeah.
Damwon, they have some good pieces. I think they're really struggling to get off their feet at the beginning of this season, especially with their top lane kind of being a disaster right now. But for now, I would also say T1 are heavily favored.
Yeah, I'd say T1 2-0 or 2-1 with relative confidence. The loss can either be if we do see a lead for like Canyon early, if like Canyon ShowMaker find an early 2v2, I can see that happen. Or if T1, I think their biggest weaknesses in drafts, random niddly priority for no reason that does nothing has happened in the past.
Yep.
But outside of that, again, I think that it is a 5-player team versus a 4.5-player team. And it's not just Burdol. I think that, I've said this since the start of the split, Damwon Kia just needs more time. I'm 100% certain that by summer they're going to be 100% a title contender, but I think this match for them comes too early, and I think T1's gonna, again, it's kind of up to T1 to not lose.
I think it's so hard, right? Because I saw in moments in their last series, and yes, like opposition, very different, but you saw how this Damwon Kia can work if it actually gets off the ground, right? And it's terrifying. Like, these are both of our like suffocation teams. T1 and Damwon are so good at winning more when they win, right? So you give them a little bit of an edge, and like the whole chicken's gone, right? It's like you thought it was just a little feather, but no, like that bird's gone.
You pull a feather out and the chicken disappears.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, dunzo. And like, I love the fact that both of these teams are so good at snowballing, but I don't think that it's going to be the same for Damwon or for T1 to snowball against each other, right? Especially with where the power lies and things like this. Like, if ShowMaker is able to once again play a highly dominating mid lane, then the way Canyon gets to play around his pressure is something that has become legendary here in the LCK. Whereas if Oner continues to be able to contend, and we've seen Canyon get gapped by junglers this season, right? And if Oner is able to go back to exactly like how he's been able to play, then you've got Faker being able to stabilize any lane that he's ever in. It's like, yes, he can get pushed in. Yes, pressure will belong to ShowMaker, but Faker never feeds. Like, that does not happen. And Zeus is a better player, and Gumi Shikaria are like the best bottom lane in the world. So, like, I love that there's this dichotomy, because like also, Dokdam and Kellen have the potential to be the best. We just haven't seen it yet. Right?
So many layers.
There's too many. It's so like good. The most onion of a matchup, and like I can't help but having my own personal feelings get in the way, and so I just think that no.
Hey, Atlas, no subjectivity on this desk.
Okay, sorry.
Only rock hard analysis. Cold
and numbers.
Sterile,
a lot of numbers.
Numbers.
All right. Well, okay. So T1, and I was about to say, but T1 from me as well. And so I guess we're safe. We're safe.
Okay, I'm glad we got that out of the way.
No, but actually, I think that's where the smart money is. I think it's like we can have like as many bias jokes as we want.
Objectively, yeah.
We can have as many bias jokes as we want. However, if the result is Damwon Kia, that is so good for the league. Like, if you think about it, like the way that the top of the standings are so crammed together, and there's like all of these like triangles of like who beats who, and it's rock, paper, scissors, battleship, and all that sort of stuff.
Also means that T1 will have one loss, like Gen G, which would make the T1 Gen G matchup even better.
Yeah, it's just like with KT winning against Gen G yesterday. I was like, this is just...
It just
throws everything into this craziness, and that just makes it all really fun. And you've got KT and Nongshim coming up as challengers, and any good team can be defeated. I think that's only good for the league. We don't want blowout 2-0s, really.
I think the spring is a lot better than spring last year. Spring last year was not it.
No.
Summer last year was great.
Spring last year was us trying to work out what DRX was. That's what spring
no,
was
no
last
other,
year.
No
And
other
it was-
team changed.
but also like that also taught us nothing. Like DRX
Yeah.
then were just not great in summer, and we were just a bit
Spring
sad.
last year, honestly, was just like, can anyone beat Damwon? And we were all just sitting here going like, no. And then Genji T1 was the semis. We were like, this is way more interesting than the finals. Then it also wasn't.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
Genji
yeah.
upset T1, and it was very one-sided. And then we were like, well, is Genji better than we thought? No.
Okay, so I think that we've tried to make this as future-proof as possible, right? We've tried to go over everything. We've tried to talk about what we think our predictions are. I think we all predict that T1 are going to be able to take the series, but you guys know, and we do not. The benefit of hindsight is with you and not with us. Hopefully, we don't look too stupid. But that will do it for this episode of the Pog State. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you buy a sweet beanie. Make sure you represent the position that you feel the most, or you feel the public will accept you the most for using, or
Look the
both
coolest with
positions.
mid lane.
I liked it more when Wolf was wearing it as two different eyebrows. That's also a hilarious way of doing it with the bot and top lane. Just be creative, be yourself, and we'll see you next time for another episode of the Pog State. Goodbye.